Connections podcast. This podcast is all about equipping, encouraging, and inspiring youth pastors weekly with topics that are brought to the table by youth pastors from all over the world. And now, here's your host for this week, Melissa Stevenson.
Hey y'all, this is Melissa and Brent from Student Ministry Conversations. Please check out our website, studentministryconversations.org, for all kinds of show notes and past episodes and all kinds of fun stuff. And ways to contact us is if you've got something that you want to talk about, we want to talk with you. Our goal is to equip youth leaders in whatever capacity they're in to be better. And so we're excited to talk to you today. And so we are both hosts, so we didn't know who was hosting, so now we're kind of giggly. The wind is blowing tremendously here, and I just got back from Sam's, and it can be no wind anywhere in town. You go to Sam's, and there's just tons of wind, so that explains my hair. So I want to talk today about middle school culture. So I was thinking this morning when I was getting dressed, I've got my Madison Middle School Bison Band shirt on, and I've got my Stanley Cup because my sixth grader thinks I need to have one. And when I was thinking about the difference between, so Brent, you can help me here. When I was thinking about the difference between my sixth grader and my freshman, these are the people that live in my house. And that when I was growing up, culture came from like the high schoolers, and the middle schoolers just kind of followed along. But of course, when growing up, there was no social media. So I think there's our big kicker right there. But my freshman, he doesn't care anything about trending. He's mostly in the I don't care generation right now. And my high schoolers and my youth group are kind of that same way. They're just kind of going with the flow. They're thinking about the future, but they're not really talking all the time about trends the way my middle schoolers are, especially the ones that live in my house. And so I wanted to talk today, Brent, because you've got a sixth grader too, but you have a boy and I have a girl. And so we were talking earlier about how that may make a difference as well. But have we noticed that middle school culture has become a more prevalent thing than high school culture?
So I think, at least in this conversation, first off, we have to address the dynamic of what we're talking about when it comes to culture. Because I think part of culture is definitely going to be just the mindset of like, what are sixth graders doing? How has the junior high process evolved? Kind of thing like that. And I think more specifically with this conversation on culture, I think it is much more of a conversation that is geared towards what are the influences that we see and how are those influences building or changing or modifying how junior high is adapting to it. And so like you said, it used to be high school because high school was getting old enough to where they were starting to pay attention to outside trends, but it was because high schoolers were now getting jobs and they were watching TV when we were growing up, and it wasn't just cartoons or anything like that. They were actually going out and getting into the world. And nowadays it really, really seems like junior high is jumping into that realm of trying to figure out how the world works, which in and of itself might be a terrifying conversation because a lot of that comes with maturity and age. And so I think some junior high are definitely having conversations that they might not necessarily be ready for. I know a lot of junior high kids that are way too versed in politics, and a lot of junior high kids that have basically kind of adapted or tried to adapt lifestyles off of what they see other people doing. And so I think that's the culture that we're talking about. And so with that regard, I do think parent of a sixth grader, almost seventh grade, I do think that I've seen an interesting trend. And we were talking about this beforehand. I think it does heavily depend on gender. And I think the things that are working to interest each are very, very different. Because right now, sixth grade boy, I am Fortnite and Rocket League all day long. And I am literally getting on the internet to find the best cheat codes or the best glitches or the best whatever to make me grand champion at video games. And so while I kind of dumb down the explanation, I play video games too, but like they are very, very much just this mindset of like, I want to find the quickest and the best and the fastest way to get better or to be the best. And I don't think they have the understanding or mindset yet of understanding that you're not going to be the best.
That's
Like,
true.
I think that's something that reality kicks in, and that might be something that's we kind of see shifting into high school is the reality of, oh wow, there are kids that are way better than I am. Um,
Hmm.
and I think
And
they
this is not going to be
begin to
my
get a
job
taste of
Sunday.
that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. And
because that
I
yeah,
think
we
that
had
they
that when
begin to,
the boy was in middle school.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think that they begin to see that in junior high, but a lot of them still have this kind of bulletproof mentality of, I can, pick myself up by my bootstraps and do whatever I want to, kind of thing like that. And while, I mean, as parents, we want them to succeed, we tell our son all the time, you're gonna succeed in life, but it's probably not gonna be as a professional video gamer. And so I think those conversations are really, really important. But it is an interesting conversation to see how these interests and how these things are influencing our junior high kids almost to a nature more than high school. I see, as far as interests in high school, I see much more of just like the TikTok trends still. I see high
Hmm.
school still trying to um, be goofy and popular and everything like that. But high school almost is building more of a community aspect around it where they want to do these TikToks with their best friends or they want to do
Right.
these TikToks and they don't really care if they ever go viral.
Hmm.
They just want to have fun doing it. And
Hmm.
I think that's been an interesting twist of focus when high school is kind of losing the interest on being the best and junior high is like, I have to be the best tomorrow. And so whether that
Yeah.
be the the best looking in school or the best video game player or the best athlete or whatever, like they are on their strive for perfection. And high school is like, meh, perfection's overrated.
Yeah, we've already done that. Well, and then the girl part of it, what I see with mine and the girls that are in my house all the time, is that they have to dress the right way. They have to have the hair the right way. A lot of that is happening, which I do think that was middle school for me. Okay, and first of all, we have to just to say this: Brent and I are in two different school districts, so he has junior high and I have middle school, which is weird. Because I grew up with junior high, and so I've had to change my vocabulary. But when I was in when middle school, junior high, I do remember that part where it was had to wear shorts on one day and pants, and you had to get the right um, pattern of shorts and pants. It was weird. That's I just have this very specific memory of that. That I would wear shorts on every day when someone else was wearing all other people were wearing pants, like long pants, and that may seems silly now, but it was very traumatizing at the time. So that's what I see with the girls is that, and they have to have the right products. So they have to have the Stanley Cup, and they have to have the right bag, and they have to. She's a very oh goodness. We were at Sam's the other day, and materialistic is what I was going to say. But we were at Sam's the other day,
Yeah.
and they had the new Gatorade bottles were on sale, and she's like, "Oh, I have to have those," and I'm like, "You have a Stanley?" And she said, "Well, no, I have to have those for swim, so I can squirt it into my mouth." And I'm like, all your friends that currently do swim have their Stanleys. Like, you don't need a second
Straw.
water bottle.
It's amazing.
Yeah, like this will work. So I think that's the difference. Like, she's not really playing, like, she's definitely not playing Fortnite. But they are doing some of the, there's another game that they play. It's on her phone, but she's mostly doing the YouTube reels and watching things. And so some of that's really interesting. And then she'll ask me about things, but almost it's not like, what is this? It was, I saw this and I don't know what this means. Can you explain it to me? And then sometimes I have to figure out how to explain something that's way above her maturity level. Like, I have to kind of dumb it down. So if we're looking at all these things with middle schoolers, junior hires, does that change how we do youth ministry with them? Do we change
Well, and
what
I
we
think,
focus on with them?
yeah, and I think part of that is definitely something that we have to focus on just for the nature of something that needs to be done, but it almost leads to the question of, is it our particular job as addressing this for the students, or do we need to do a better job equipping parents to navigate these scenarios and these things? Because this, almost in my mind, coming from both dynamics, I feel like, especially as parent, I feel like I have a much heavier opportunity and responsibility to be able to kind of draft how I phase and how I build our interactions around certain subjects, especially when it comes to the strive for perfection, whether it be materialistic or video game or whatever. The strive for perfection that we are seeing, I feel it's my job as a parent to say, hey, like, I need to make sure that you know it's okay to not be perfect. Like, you will face forever disappointment if you strive for perfection. Because, like, realistically, by definition, only one person can be perfect. And so, like, you are either constantly striving to be that person, and it's odds are you're probably never going to make it, or if you make it, you're not going to be there long. Or it is this mindset that also with this, you just, like, you waste so much time and avoid so many other conversations and so many other things that you need to be putting time towards. And so, like, my job as a parent to teach them to be relational, and teach them to manage their time, and teach them to manage their relationships, teach them to manage their work or school, teach them to manage their fun and entertainment times. All of that, I think part of that is like this drive to, as a parent, kind of lead the charge with the expectation of, we don't want you to be perfect. We want you to do your best, and that's a different conversation. But as far as a youth ministry perspective, I would almost say that this is something that we need to focus in and be like, hey, you know, parents, your kids are currently dealing with this, and this. This is what we're seeing with trends. This is what we're seeing with the current ideologies of middle school. And your son or daughter might be trying to do this or this, but, like, really right now, they just need to know you're there. They just need to know that it's okay for them to not have a 100 average in school. And it's okay for them not to completely succeed at everything that they do.
Win all the things.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the twists that we're seeing, is I think that used to be high school, because high school was like, man, I got to be perfect to get into college, or I have to be perfect to, like, play that college sport, or I have to jump into the workforce immediately, or I have to start a family, or all these different things that kind of used to be the high school focuses, which kind of drew that perfection status. But then you also kind of have this mindset of, like we said, it's shifting into junior high, where the junior hires are now the ones that are like, hey, like, I have to be everything. And it's like, no, you don't. But I think this is an interesting twist too, because I think the earlier they figure this out, the more healthy they will be in the long run.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. We had the conversation the other day, because it was the materialistic thing, but it was also my friends are having a sleepover and they didn't invite me. And so she was upset by that. But she was taking her worth from it. And so that was the conversation we had to have, was that your worth is not what other people think of you, or the things that you have, or the things that you wear, things like that. And so we had to, we love you and you are a child of God. And so that was the conversation that had to happen with that. But but that was a hard situation. Like how do you tell?
And I think that's something. I think that's something that's really hard. I think that's something that's really, really hard, because when you look into these dynamics, like, I mean, like social status and friendships is like the do or die in junior high. You
Mm-hmm.
either have friends or you don't exist. And like when you are not part of those circles, it's a really, really big problem. And then as you move into adulthood, as most of us have, you're like, it's okay if I like don't hang out with anybody today. I probably will be perfectly fine. I do want to have plans on a weekend, but like I don't need to be around people every single day of every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that shifts as you get older. But I think going back to the youth ministry perspective of this, I think the other thing is like middle school pastors especially need to be orienting and focusing solely on Jesus.
Yes.
And they need to understand that like the strive for perfection that we're seeing in junior high students hands down leads us to almost a softball pitch into the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have this
really right there.
yeah, we have this opportunity of like, look, like you don't have to be perfect because he was. Like and so like it just gives this great opportunity. It gives this great opportunity to be in just these real authentic conversations that when we have these with them, hopefully it allows them to maybe take a step back and be like, oh, hey, man, I'm really in this. I might be in over my head, and it gives them a chance to breathe. But then also it gives them an opportunity to just be present and be aware of like the fact that like perfection is really this thing that doesn't need to be chased. And striving for excellence and perfection are two different things.
Mm-hmm. So if middle schoolers and junior hires are watching the trends and the culture and they're more into that, and we talked about this offline that social media is really a big part of that. How can we use, I hate the word use, but how can we use that to get more kids into our youth group? Like that's a switch right there, a different kind of conversation, but I think it's an important one. That how can we use the opportunities on social media to get more people into church to hear about Jesus?
Well, I think some of the things
Or
that you
should we?
do, and
I guess that's a good
yeah,
question.
yeah, and that's part of it. Is that a battle worth fighting? And
Mm-hmm.
realistically, largely you have to kind of do this introspection of like, where is your youth group? Because right now we have a youth group that most of our sixth graders don't have their own phones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so, like, making pushes for them to be on social media is really not something that's going to go
That's true.
well with
Right.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then even with seventh and eighth graders, I have a lot of parents in seventh and eighth graders that are like, "Hey, you have a phone, you can call and text people. Social media is off." Like, you don't get that till you're in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen different aspects of both, where it's been really, really early adopters of social media before you're legally allowed to, which the age is 13, by the way. Um, and then the
Correct.
other aspect of it is there have been some that are like, look, you're not getting social media till you're in high school. You're not getting social media till you're
Mm-hmm.
16. You're not getting social media till you graduate high school. And so I've seen both dynamics of this. And so I think really you have to play cards according to where you are. But I would also almost undermine the focus of social media and push more towards just allowing them to realize that there's content available that's not necessarily social media related. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's you using Right Now Media to find videos that you can send out short clips and be like, hey, like just check out this 2 minute clip and like tell me what you think about it. Instead of posting it on social media, maybe you set up a group me or something, or you text out a few kids individually and be like, hey, I saw this. Like, I'm curious on your thoughts. Or pull those videos up in youth. I mean, however you need to do it.
Okay, so Brent, you were talking about sending clips from Right Now Media or things that we find on social media that is appropriate and uplifting to our students through their like texting or through their parents or through our email programs, things like that.
Yeah.
And so here's my counter argument. So if we've got students already on, for example, we'll just go with YouTube Reels, because it's not necessarily the Facebook where you have and Instagram where you have to be 13. Anybody can be on YouTube Reels. So should we combat the things that are already, some of the kids may be already looking at that? And so should we be posting on there our own things, or is that a way to share those other things we were talking about to hit the ones that are already doing that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a argument that we have to kind of look at as well, just for the nature of there are things that come into play. And I mean, it's kind of like, do you want to throw more fuel on that fire? And so I totally see that argument of just having this dynamic to where, I mean, if people are overly influenced by social media, do we want to throw more at it? But I think I hate this term, but we're almost to a point in culture now to where this is like life for them. This is something that they've had for their entire
That's true.
entire life on earth. And so like I said, I hate the phrase, but like, if you can't beat them, join them. And I think that's where a lot of churches and a lot of social media influencers that are Christian have kind of started making this approach of just this mindset of like, man, if we can't beat this, we just have to provide good content that can really, really influence and kind of navigate the roads that kids are paying attention to. And so I think there's a lot of good content out there that is working towards that. But once again, it kind of depends on whether your kids have access to social media or not. We have a Instagram for our youth ministry. One of our junior girls runs it. They do reels every week. And basically they just find trends online that they're just kind of like wanting to throw their own twist on it. And so they've made some really, really funny stuff, and they've had really, really great traction off of it. But I haven't seen much ROI as far as return on interest. I mean, return on investment. And so with that, it's one of those things like, do you continue to kind of feed into something that like might not necessarily be the best for them? But how do you not feed into that and not get lost in the noise that they have going on everywhere else?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, there is the argument that by us feeding into it, it can turn it to a positive. We've seen that with algorithms where you watch a lot of a certain type of thing that it'll add those kinds of things back into your newsfeed. But I think the bigger question is, do you have time? Like, is that when you're planning your week out, is that something that you have the time and the ability and because that takes creative power too. Like, do you have that brain space to make those things happen? So,
well, and I think the big argument with that is, with that, you have to be oriented and focused, and the best youth leader is a leader of administration, and you are good at delegating jobs to other people.
That's true.
And so finding those people within your ministry, even if they're students that are creative enough to go after that, you're giving them basically real world training of something that they might potentially do in a marketing career or something to that in the future. But you're also taking something that they're interested and passionate about now and giving them full reign to go do it themselves. I've had some students that it has tanked and not worked well because they did it once or twice and didn't really like it. And then you just move on to the next kid. And then now, like I said, we have a junior girl that's killing it. She loves it. She looks forward to doing it every week. She's constantly strategizing and talking about the next thing that she's going to do. And so, awesome. But it's taken time, and it's taken finding the right person to do it. And that's with anything. But I think this is one of those things, like, you don't have to do everything. Find someone that's skilled in this area to do it for you.
That's true. Okay, y'all. So we wanted to know if this is just an Abilene, Texas thing, or have you been seeing this trending in your area all over the United States, or around the world? I don't know where our people listen. But mostly you've just heard Brent and I's conversations on Thursdays that we have at coffee and lunch. So that's kind of what this was today. But we want to know what you think. We want to know, are you seeing these same kind of things with middle schoolers? Are you seeing the same things with genders? And we want to know if you're doing anything different to combat that, or are you just kind of going with the flow and seeing where things are going? Are we just listening to our kids? Because I think that's really important. So we thank you for hanging out with us today. I've got to go to class now. So we're going to cut it a little bit short today. And we appreciate you listening. Please check out our website, studentministryconversations.org. And if you want to talk about this, let us know. Let's talk about it. Have a great day. Bye.
See ya.